It's a member of the four pieces of the accountability puzzle. Okay, if you could raise your hand, and if I could see it, I'd ask you, how many of you believe you've got a perfect culture of accountability already?
Like, no one.
Well,
Perfect.
it's appropriate I can't see any hands because there are no hands. Okay, and I'm sorry to be critical, but these are the things that we have to execute on. So number one, be very clear and seek, this is really important if I don't advance this by touching it, it's very important that you get that employee to acknowledge the expectation that you have just given them. And I'll give you more on that. The expectation must be time specific. We just talked about that. I need it on Tuesday, no later than 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. In my office, okay, and I'd like to have you prepare the result this way so the both of us can review it. Then I go to acknowledgement, which I'm going to take you through on the next slide. Ownership is, again, that law of single ownership. Don't put a committee behind it, because the people on the committee are going to be looking at each other at every meeting going, I don't know, am I responsible for that? I thought you were responsible for that. No, clear that up right away. Go for the law of single ownership. You know, going public is it's an interesting concept. It really says that if you've got a big objective that you need to take care of, that you're responsible for, share it with somebody and say, hey, Bonnie, hold me accountable to getting that blog out this week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have the perfect right to come marching down to my office and say, hey, we got to post that blog tomorrow. Have you got it done? Or she'll say, like, we have our workshop next week. By the way, we have our quarterly Action Coach workshop, Growth Club workshop. So we give you a bunch of great content that teases your brain to take into our 90-day action planning facilitated session, where you will walk out of that workshop with a documented plan for what you're going to do in the next 90 days. Sorry, that was a pitch. Okay, so clear and acknowledged expectations. Think of this when you're setting expectations today, and are you doing it adequately? A clear expectation is something that is visual. Your description of the end game should create a visual in the head of the person you're giving it to. And it can be measured and be clearly understood by both parties. Make it clear. If the language of accountability is to make it smart. In other words, real quickly, specific and measurable. Okay? Very important step. And a lot of business owners kind of go, oh, no, that's micromanagement. I don't really think I need to take that step. And that's bull crap. If you want to be able to sleep at night, you got to take this step. And that is, you ask that person after you've described the expectation in sufficient detail that creates a vision in their head, equivalent hopefully to yours. What does that look like? What does what I just described to you, or what does that look like when you're done? And so they'll describe it to you and you'll go, oh, you're really close. Here's the one part that I think you're missing a little bit. Let's clear that up. Because I've just seen it happen way too often, right, Bruce? Yep. Where even if you're managing a client or a supplier, we share an expectation with them, and if we don't get acknowledgement, they come back, and they could come back at the very specific time, day, etc. So, check that box off. But what they brought back to you was a watermelon, and you were looking for a cantaloupe.
Yep. And also, if there's multiple steps, it's best to write it down, as opposed to
for each step. Is what you're saying.
If I need you to do this one thing, maybe you can do that verbally. But if it's like, okay, I need you to do this one thing, but there's 10 components to that one thing, it's best to have a memo or a written statement outlining it.
Okay, deadlines and timelines. This gets into a little bit more detail, but just remember, if it's a big project, then you want people to check in with you at certain timelines, like milestones. And you want them to check in. If you're giving somebody a project that you'd say from start to finish is a 1 month project, you might say, hey, I'd like you to check in with me every week on this day at this time for a progress check-in.
Yep.
Okay? Because if you let the whole daggone thing go until the end of that next month, and then you're getting the results, it's like this thing is only half baked. I can't eat this. So I'm protecting you here. So follow the steps. Single ownership we've gone through, and that is just make sure that if you want something done, you can create a committee, but there's one person on that committee that is in charge of making sure the outcome gets delivered. Okay?